In the history of messengers, there is an unwritten rule. When God speaks, man trembles in obedience. But imagine a man who hears the voice of the Creator, not to kneel in submission, but to turn his back and flee. He does not run from an enemy, nor from death, but from the very mission of bringing life to tens of thousands of people. The paradox lies here. The one chosen to herald redemption is the one who craves destruction more than anyone. At the crossroads of faith and hatred, between divine command and proud ego, one of history's greatest pursuits began. This is the story of Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet who tried to use the entire ocean to hide from the eyes of the Almighty. In the land of Gath-Hepher, the morning air, once peaceful, suddenly grew heavy as if an invisible storm were gathering. Jonah stood there, his sinewy hands gripping the rough fabric of his cloak. The word of the Lord had just struck his ears, not as a gentle whisper, but as a verdict.
Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me.
Cold sweat broke out on Jonah's forehead. Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, a symbol of brutality where the enemies of his people reigned. God's demand was more than a mission. It was an insult to his national pride. If he went and they repented, God would forgive them. The thought of those butchers of Nineveh receiving grace made Jonah's chest tighten, his breath coming in sharp, erratic gasps. Instead of kneeling, Jonah turned his back. He did not pack his bags. He did not say goodbye to his kin. His feet began to move, slowly at first, then quickening into a frantic flight toward the west, the exact opposite direction of Nineveh. His goal was Tarsish, the edge of the known world at that time. He believed that if the distance were great enough, the call of God would fade and eventually vanish. Jonah arrived at the port of Joppa. His heavy footsteps thudded against the scorching stone quay of the harbor. He found a ship preparing to weigh anchor for Tarsish. With trembling hands, he fished out silver coins to pay his fare, the price of an escape. As he boarded, Jonah did not look back. He went straight down to the lowest deck of the ship, found a dark corner, and lay down. Jonah did not pray, nor did he reflect. The exhaustion of a fugitive weighed heavily on his eyelids, and he fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, above deck, the sky began to shift its colors. Inky black clouds swept in from the horizon at a dizzying speed, swallowing the last of the sunlight. The storm struck. The Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea. The once placid surface now lashed out like a wounded beast. Waves as tall as towers crashed down upon the deck, the wood creaking and snapping under the terrifying pressure of the water. The sailors, men long accustomed to the wind and waves, were now pale with terror. They cried out, each praying to his own God, while frantically tossing cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But the vessel continued to toss violently, like a withered leaf caught in a whirlpool. While death drew near, Jonah remained still in the ship's hold. The howling wind and the roaring waves failed to wake him. The shipmaster rushed down to the hold and shook him violently.
How can you sleep? What is wrong with you?
Jonah opened his eyes, facing the terrified countenance of the shipmaster. He stepped onto the deck, where the sailors were casting lots to discover who had brought this calamity upon them. The lot fell on Jonah. Eyes full of fury and fear converged upon him.
Who are you? Where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you?
The questions came in rapid succession, striking him like the spray of the waves. Jonah stood tall amidst the tilting ship, his voice dry yet clear.
I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land.
Those words struck the sailors' minds like a bolt of lightning. They grew even more terrified when they heard him confess that he was fleeing from his presence.
What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us?
Their cries mingled with the shrieking wind. Jonah looked into the pitch-black heart of the sea. This was the moment of choice. He could have repented and cried out for forgiveness, but instead he chose death over fulfilling his mission in Nineveh.
throw me into the sea, and it will become calm for you. For I know that this great tempest is because of me."
The sailors still strained to row for the shore, their hands blistering from the effort to save a single life, even though that man had brought ruin upon them. But it was in vain. The sea grew ever more tempestuous. Finally, they cried out to Jonah's Lord Jehovah, pleading with him not to hold them guilty of shedding innocent blood. Then they hoisted Jonah up and hurled him into the heart of the raging ocean. Instantly, a terrifying silence fell. The sea ceased its roaring. The waves stopped their thundering. The sailors stood frozen on the deck, witnessing the formidable power of God, and they offered sacrifices and made vows to him. As for Jonah, he sank slowly into the darkness. The water pressure crushed his chest. The silence of death began to envelop him, but the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah. In the thick darkness, amidst the digestive juices and the stench of the fish's stomach, Jonah realized that there is no place to escape from the presence of the Most High. Jonah lay there in a nameless space. It was a tomb of flesh, where the darkness was so dense it could be felt. The air was thick with the smell of the ocean, the decay of marine creatures, and the pungent gastric acid surrounding his skin. Time lost all meaning. Every second felt like centuries. This was the ultimate end of his flight. The man who once wanted to use death to reject his mission was now facing an existence more terrifying than death itself. Inside the belly of the great fish, Jonah was no longer the proud prophet of Gath-Hepher. He was merely a trembling, tiny entity. The heartbeat of the sea monster thundered like a war drum, a constant reminder that his life hung by a single thread of grace. Jonah finally found his voice.
"I will sacrifice to you with songs of thanksgiving. I will make good what I have vowed."
His prayer did not begin with a grievance, but with the bitter admission of his failure. He cried out from the deepest depths of the underworld. In the darkness and suffocation, Jonah understood that all salvation comes from the Lord, not from human wisdom or strength. 3 days and 3 nights passed in the silence of the deep. It was a time for Jonah's ego to be stripped away layer by layer. And then, at the Creator's command, the great fish shuddered. A powerful surge of pressure expelled Jonah from his mobile tomb. He was vomited onto dry land in the brilliant light of dawn. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, the same command as before, without a single comma changed.
Arise, go to the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim to it the message I have given you.
This time Jonah stood up. There were no more ships, no more west. He headed east, trekking across scorching deserts to reach his enemy. Nineveh appeared before his eyes like a monster of stone and brick. It was a colossal city, requiring a 3-day journey to traverse. Its walls loomed tall, and its temples to foreign gods were stained with blood and brutality. Jonah entered the heart of the city, his face weathered and his eyes burning with a brief but terrifying message.
40 more days, and Nineveh will be overthrown.
His voice echoed through every alleyway, from the mansions of the elite to the slums of the poor. He offered no promise of forgiveness. He only proclaimed destruction. Yet a miracle occurred that even Jonah had not anticipated. The words of a bedraggled stranger, fresh from the belly of a fish, struck the conscience of an entire empire. The people of Nineveh believed God. They did not argue or make excuses. From the greatest to the least, they all put on sackcloth and fasted. Even the king, upon hearing the news, rose from his throne, laid aside his royal robes, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat in the ashes. An edict was issued. No one, not even the animals, was to eat anything. Everyone was to call urgently on God and give up their evil ways and the violence of their hands. They clung to a faint glimmer of hope.
Why has this happened to us? What more can we do?
If we change our ways right now, perhaps he will relent and revoke this death sentence.
God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, and he, who was overflowing with mercy, changed his mind about the calamity he had threatened to bring upon them. He did not do it, but amidst the joy of tens of thousands being restored, one man felt an immense surge of anger. Jonah stood outside the city, his eyes flashing with utter dissatisfaction. To him, this forgiveness was an injustice, a collapse of the order of justice he had always believed in. The salvation of Nineveh, instead of bringing joy to the prophet, became a personal humiliation for Jonah. In his worldview, the wicked had to be punished, and God's forgiveness seemed like a weakness he could not accept. Jonah fell into a profound psychological crisis, where his national pride and narrow conception of justice shattered before the boundless mercy of the Creator. Jonah left the city, but he did not go far. He went to the east of Nineveh, built a temporary shelter, and sat in its shade to observe. He still harbored a faint hope that the repentance of the people of Nineveh was only temporary, and that God would ultimately change his mind and rain hellfire down upon them. He sat there, waiting for his enemy's downfall with a resentful heart. God saw the bitterness in the prophet's heart. He did not use words to rebuke him immediately, but used a practical action to expose his selfishness. He caused a castor oil plant to grow quickly, shading Jonah from the scorching desert sun. Jonah was overjoyed because of the plant's shade. For the first time in his journey, he felt satisfied, but that satisfaction stemmed from his personal comfort rather than the lives of tens of thousands of souls. But the next morning, as dawn broke, God sent a worm to bite the plant, causing it to wither. When the sun rose, he brought a scorching east wind. The intense heat beat down on Jonah's head until he grew faint, and once again, he wished for death.
It would be better for me to die than to live.
God asked Jonah,
Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?
Jonah replied defiantly,
I am right to be angry, even to death.
This was the moment the truth was revealed in a brilliant flash. God said to him,
You had pity on a plant for which you did not work, and which you did not cause to grow, which came into being in a night, and perished in a night. And should I not have pity on Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 people who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?
The question from God still echoed in the air, vibrating through every hot desert breeze. Jonah sat there, motionless as a stone statue. His eyes no longer looked toward the city of Nineveh with the expectation of its collapse, but instead gazed at the withered remains of the castor oil plant at his feet. He realized that he had been too preoccupied with his personal honor, forgetting the very heartbeat of life. 120,000 people, 120,000 souls, along with thousands of other creatures, were all more precious than a single tree providing shade for himself alone. God was not only the God of Israel, he was the creator of every breath. Jonah stood up. He no longer needed the shade of the plant. He walked down the hill, but this time not to flee, but to enter the very city he had once cursed. In today's world of algorithms and echo chambers, we easily become modern-day Jonahs. We only want to protect the castor oil plant of our personal opinions and are ready to hope for the destruction of those who differ from us. The story of Jonah is a reminder that behind every statistic, every news line, and every opponent on social media is a real human being with breath and emotions? Can we stop, listen to the call of compassion, and learn to pity instead of judge?
By the way, if you find these videos meaningful or worth watching, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us bring God's Word to more people through powerful animation.